It was a chilly October morning in 2024, the kind of day in our sleepy Charlotte, North Carolina suburb where you'd rather stay curled up with coffee than face the world. But I, Ethan Carter, a 37-year-old freelance graphic designer scraping by after a brutal tech layoff, didn't have that luxury. I was waiting on a $4,000 payment from my top client, the kind of money that meant I could skip instant noodles for a month and maybe even buy real coffee. The catch? It was supposed to arrive in our neighborhood's shared mailbox cluster, a metal fortress for 12 houses, supposedly safer than individual boxes. Spoiler, it wasn't. What happened next turned my quiet street into a battleground and made me question everything I thought I knew about my neighbors. I shuffled out at 5:45 a.m. in my ratty sweatpants and flip-flops, clutching a mug, expecting nothing but a quick grab of my check. Instead, I spotted a figure hunched over the mailboxes like a raccoon raiding trash. At first, I figured it was the mail carrier, but it was way too early, and the neon green bathrobe was a dead giveaway. This wasn't USPS. It was Margaret Hensley, our HOA president and self-proclaimed queen of the cul-de-sac. Margaret was the type to measure your lawn with a ruler and slap you with a fine if a blade was too long. She'd been running the HOA for 4 years, unopposed because no one wanted to tangle with her clipboard and superiority complex. But seeing her digging through mailboxes before dawn, that was next-level weird, even for her. I watched, coffee going cold, as she methodically opened each box, sifting through envelopes with a checklist in hand, like she was auditing the neighborhood's soul. When she got to my box and pulled out a thick envelope-me $4,000 check, I lost it. All the frustration from her petty HOA fines, my shaky finances, and her smug authority boiled over. I stormed over, heart pounding, and cleared my throat loud enough to wake the dead. "Margaret, what the hell are you doing with my mail?" Her reaction was Oscar-worthy. Jumped like a cat on a hot stove, spinning around with my check clutched to her chest. For a split second, panic flashed in her eyes, but then she flipped into full-on HOA tyrant mode. "Ethan, thank goodness you're here," she said, voice dripping with fake sincerity. "I'm reorganizing the mail for security. We've had suspicious activity lately." I wasn't buying it. She was holding my check and a stack of other people's mail, her phone screen glowing with a list of names, addresses, and what looked like bank balances, mine at the top. How did she know my finances? My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and started recording. "That's my payment, Margaret. And those envelopes aren't yours either." Her eyes darted to my phone, then back to me, a mix of fear and defiance. "I'm ensuring proper distribution," she snapped, her voice hitting that entitled pitch that could crack glass. "Some envelopes looked tampered with, and as HOA president, it's my duty to protect our community." The audacity was staggering. Caught red-handed, she was doubling down like I was the criminal. I spent the rest of that Monday digging into mail theft laws, learning it's a federal crime with up to 5 years in prison. Margaret, meanwhile, hit me with 3 HOA violations by noon: improper attire in public areas, aggressive confrontation, and me favorite unauthorized filming of community security operations. Each came with a $75 fine. The nerve of this woman, fining me for catching her stealing, was almost impressive. But I wasn't playing her game. I called the Federal Mail Theft Hotline and got connected to Postal Inspector Sarah Thompson, a 20-year veteran with a no-nonsense vibe that made me feel like someone finally got it. "Ethan, this sounds like an organized fraud operation we've been tracking across Mecklenburg County," she said after I sent her my video. "That list on her phone? That's premeditated surveillance, possibly identity theft prep. We need to act fast." Sarah drove to my place the next day in an unmarked SUV, looking more like a real estate agent than a federal officer. She reviewed my footage, her face darkening as she pointed out Margaret's systematic approach: 4 minutes per mailbox, left to right, targeting thick envelopes and financial mail. "She's not impulsive," Sarah said. "This is a refined system." The phone list with my bank details was the real kicker. It screamed targeted profiling. Sarah suggested we canvass the neighborhood to confirm if this was a pattern. What I found was gut-wrenching. My neighbor, Sam, said his 80-year-old dad hadn't gotten his diabetes meds in 5 days, nearly landing him in the hospital. Rachel, who runs a small catering business, reported missing client checks, threatening her livelihood. 8 households had lost financial documents, medications, or valuable packages over the past month. The pattern was undeniable and infuriating. Sarah proposed a sting operation straight out of a crime thriller. She brought a tactical case to my kitchen table: GPS trackers smaller than a dime, micro cameras hidden in envelope seams, and invisible chemical markers. "We're documenting her every move," Sarah said, unpacking fake bank statements and credit card offers designed to tempt Margaret. She'd studied Margaret's routine, Mondays and Thursdays at 5:50 a.m., precise as a Swiss watch. Sam offered his house as a surveillance post with a clear view of the mailboxes, furious about his dad's meds. Rachel, nervous but cooperative, reported Margaret trying to rope her into security invoicing that smelled like a scam. Sarah adjusted the plan for Margaret's growing paranoia, started varying her timing and dragging Rachel along as a reluctant accomplice, threatening her with business license violations. By Wednesday night, everything was set. The bait mail was ready, trackers active, and Sarah's command vehicle parked discreetly nearby. Sam was at his post, and I was the primary witness, sweating bullets despite the cool air. At 5:50 a.m. Thursday, Margaret showed up, clipboard in hand, Rachel trailing like a nervous shadow. My heart raced as she grabbed all 3 bait envelopes, triggering Sarah's trackers. "Target acquired packages," Sarah's voice crackled over the radio. "GPS is live. Maintain positions." But then, everything went haywire. Instead of heading home or to a stash spot, the GPS showed Margaret driving downtown, first to her bank for 7 minutes, then a shady strip mall for a 3-minute handoff with a dark sedan, and finally, unbelievably, to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Sarah went silent on the radio for 5 agonizing minutes. When she spoke, her voice was shaken. "Ethan, stay put. Something's very wrong." 20 minutes later, Sarah burst into my house, pale as a ghost. "Margaret's a confidential informant for the police's financial crimes unit," she said, showing me official documents. "She's been helping them track a money laundering ring in your neighborhood for 7 months. My brain short-circuited. Margaret wasn't a thief, she was undercover, and my $4,000 client was the real criminal, using my legitimate design work to launder dirty money. The police meeting that afternoon was a nightmare. Detective James Carter, a grizzled cop, tore into us. "So, Ethan, instead of calling us, you launch your own vigilante sting?" Sarah took heat for not coordinating with local cops, creating a jurisdictional mess. Worse, my bank accounts were frozen $35,000, my entire year's earnings, because my clients' payments were proceeds of crime. I nearly threw up. Margaret apologized later, looking human for once. "I couldn't break cover, Ethan," she said. "Your client's payments were red flags." The irony burned. I'd vilified her while she was protecting us. The neighborhood imploded. Sam, Rachel, and others had taken suspicious payments, unwittingly aiding the scheme. At an emergency meeting, Margaret explained her role, tears in her eyes, as neighbors grappled with betrayal and fear of being investigated. My client's trial 6 months later, in April 2025, was surreal. I testified about my work, grilled by a defense attorney who painted me as a naive pawn. Sarah's evidence and Margaret's testimony about her undercover work sealed the case. The jury convicted my client and his crew on charges from fraud to racketeering, with sentences up to 15 years. The real bombshell came post-trial. A federal prosecutor revealed the mastermind, a corrupt postal supervisor selling mail data to criminals. Sarah's sting had cracked the biggest postal corruption case in the district. Margaret was hailed as a hero, re-elected HOA president unanimously. My accounts were unfrozen, with compensation, and my reputation soared. Clients returned, and I was even in a documentary about financial crimes. Our neighborhood rebuilt trust, launching Real Watch programs and a community center funded by seized assets. But here's the twist that still haunts me. As we left the courthouse, Sarah got a call from the FBI. Margaret's lawyer had offered dirt on my bank for a deal implying my accounts were still under scrutiny. Was the nightmare really over? Why did Margaret's smile that day feel like she knew something I didn't? What's in your mailbox that could unravel everything? Should you trust your HOA, or is someone watching your every move? Comment below, hit like, and subscribe to dive into more stories that'll make you question your own backyard. What would you do if you caught your neighbor in your mailbox?